Hi, my name is Deon, and this is the Bullion Vault. Willem, how are you doing?
Uh, got a bit of the sniffles today, so it's going to be an interesting one, but we'll do our best.
Well, it is that time of year, so if I haven't had it yet, but I'm bound to get it at some stage. But we'll keep the distance. We'll remain what's it?
Social
Social
distancing. So yeah, there
distancing.
we go. There
So
we go.
we got the correct distance between us. But yeah, thanks for coming in anyway. I know you're not feeling 100%, but we're going to just really unpack today. We wanted to just discuss a little bit about the US and the tariffs, and then also the relation with South Africa and BRICS. But just a quick dive into current, with precious metals, the current affairs, what's been happening. I see gold has maintained a pretty much consistent run through from last week to now, sitting at over 3,320 odd dollars an ounce. So it's been nice and solid.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we see silver still sitting at $36.50 an ounce. We see platinum still sitting in the high 1300s. I mean, especially platinum is doing extremely well. And yeah, well, gold. We were talking earlier about the Goldman Sachs and all of the big investing houses and their predictions. And yeah, we see it ranging from 3,700 to 3,100, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, so just on that platinum, I mean, again, it's been it's starting to show great performance, and it's really showing a lot of resilience in quite a tight. I look within the South African mining sector, in the platinum sector, it hasn't been easy, but the price has definitely been very buoyant and very strong. And I do foresee that this has a lot to do with industrial applications. There has always been investments part of that, but I definitely see it's more the industrial side. But straight into gold. And I mean, this, as we'd mentioned, I mean, HSBC came out this week saying that, oh, they foresee gold for the until the year end sitting at around 3,100, $3,200 an ounce. It may tip to about 3,600, but they see it correcting over the 3-4 mark. And what's interesting is they then look at 2026 and they look for a very similar thing, that it will pretty much be quite lateral over the next period of time. Lows of with 3,100 and highs of about 3,600. You then go to, which we spoke about, uh, Morgan Chase, JP Morgan, and they projected gold to be by the year end at around 3.7 and so on. And same with Goldman Sachs, they came out this week also saying they foresee gold peaking at around 3.7, and then probably sitting around 3.5 for the balance of this year. And then they look for 2026, where they actually see it sitting at around about 4,000 if the current market conditions worsen and favor gold. They can even see it going to for about $4,500 an ounce.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing here is to not discount anything. If we look just last year, July, gold was sitting at roughly about $2,400 an ounce, and I mean, right now we're sitting at 3,320. That means you're up about 28% year on year,
Yeah.
which is frankly enormous. And yeah, as I said, it's we can't discount anything at this point. Um, yes, we might see a correction. We might see it taking on a bit more of a lateral movement, but we gonna have to wait and see whether we're going to hit the 3,700s, the 4,000s, or if it's going to just calm down a little bit and carry on.
I'm smiling because I think of our conversations in January this year where we like 3,200, 3,300. Wow, that was just unthinkable. And yet we surpassed those. I understand what you're saying is, do we expect any massive accelerations? We got to look at it another way now. We look at Reserve Bank buying. Again, June was a very strong month for the Reserve Bank buying across the globe. Various of the countries actually increasing their buying. So a lot of the European countries, or what we term as the Western countries of Europe, are now saying to the US that they actually like their gold back. So you look at countries like Germany and Italy, and I mean, they've got in combined actual volume of gold over 240 billion dollars worth of gold, which they've said to the US, I know you've been keeping it for us, but we'd like it back. So you can see this claim on sovereign wealth is becoming, even within the G8 countries where there was a lot of trust. And if you look at the history of it running all the way through the wars, I mean, these countries have stood together. And yet, now suddenly they're saying, gold should be held in our country where we can protect that sovereign wealth.
Definitely. I mean, we're seeing it all over the world, the repatriating of gold, as they call it, where countries want their own gold back. They want to hold their own gold. And we talked about this last time, I think. The reason why these central banks are buying gold, why they are holding gold, is to have that safety net away from the US dollar, because I don't think the US dollars or the trust in the US as a trading partner at the moment is extremely strong. We've got, and I think we're going to talk about it just now, we've got the next round of sanctions being lined up, or not sanctions, tariffs being lined up. And I think there's a lot of worry going around the entire world and just the world economy in general about what on earth is the US going to do next.
Yeah, I think Trump throws a lot of uncertainty into the mix globally, with his how he addresses foreign policy, and also with the tariffs. I mean, it's been 90 days since he announced that initial thing. South Africa, for instance, and we can go into that now anyway, but they were saying, we want to go back to the Go agreement with preferential trade, where we can actually have zero tariff, into the states. And the states have come back saying no. And it was a nice formal letter. It was, I think, published in the Daily Maverick, where, we will be applying a 30% tariff on all goods coming into the US. What's interesting is they say that in turn, South Africa's, the imports that come into this country that are US are generally a lot higher. And South Africa's response is actually 90% of it is actually, there is no tariffs on
Well,
it.
I've actually got the exact numbers for you in that one. It's the presidency stated basically that the tariffs on imported goods entering South Africa from the US stands at 7.6%.
Yes,
However, 55% of the goods that enter South Africa at 0%, and then 77% of US goods entering the South African market under the 0% duty. Now, I'm not 100% sure that that means, but basically, yeah, they're saying 30%, and I can tell you exactly where that comes from. It's quite interesting, and I did my own maths and my own homework on this, because if you remember on the what did they call it, Liberation Day, where all of these tariffs were announced,
yes,
Trump stated that it should be 60%, but we're discounting it for you as a deal.
yes,
So where does that 60% that they see come from?
yeah.
And it's quite simple. If we look at the US trade deficit to South Africa, they're importing $14.6 billion worth of goods from us. We're importing $5.8 billion worth of goods from them. What's the trade deficit? 60%. So it's not that we're putting tariffs on it, it's that the tariffs aren't being looked at as tariffs. They're seeing a trade deficit and they're thinking, oh, we need to make back the money on that. And it's frankly quite ridiculous.
But also the different size of economies. I mean, the South African economy, I think the Californian economy is bigger than the South African
I
economy.
think the Californian economy is something like the third largest in the world.
Yeah, exactly. But even if you look at a big state like Texas, I'm almost certain that even the Texan economy is bigger than the South African economy. So economy of scales, and a lot of economies being thrown in this, is it's not a fair swing at it, and that's pretty much
No,
what she's
I
saying.
mean, the simplest thing to look at is population.
Exactly.
340 million people in US, 63.2 in South Africa.
Yeah.
That's, we've got 18% of the US population, yet they expecting us to do equal trade with them. It's ludicrous.
But then also we go back to, and now we square bang into the whole South Africa US thing, is of course the famous day where Ramaphosa went to the White House with his entourage of whiteys who are Minister of Agriculture, two golfers, plus a rich businessman. And these people went with him to show the united front of the new government, the government of national unity. And subsequently, it's gone completely pear-shaped over the last couple of weeks.
It's yeah, well, what can we say? But I mean, look, it's obvious that for whatever reason, there's a focus on South Africa at the moment from the US.
I know where it's coming from. And it's very clear. It's called BRIC small s.
And we'll get to that in a second as well, because now here's the thing. Now they want to slap another 10% onto any, you know, country who is aligning themselves with BRICS because, and I mean, this is a quote that I saw, it is harming the dollars. Okay, well, probably not a quote, but as close as I can remember, it's harming the dollars.
Paraphrasing.
Yeah, paraphrasing. It's harming the dollars status as reserve currency, and
Yeah.
we're looking to dethrone them. Basically, is what it comes down to, and they can't have that.
Again, this is interesting because we know the foundation of BRICS was firstly the limited access to global decision making, which the G8 had. And of course, these countries, we're talking massive economies like India, like China, which were literally on the edge, and Brazil, which are literally on the edge and being dictated to by the world, saying this is what's going to happen. And of course, that's the formation of BRICS. South Africa, and I always say the small s because it's quite interesting that we even have a seat at that table. Because in actual real power and influence, we don't have that much. Within our own continent, you see the growth rate of other countries, and some of them are in the 6 to 7 to 8%. We are not even cracking 0.12% right now.
Definitely, and I mean, if we're looking at these tariffs, according to Davi Rutt, it could cost South Africa anywhere between 9.3 billion and 14 billion rands. I mean, and mostly that will be in the automotive and the agricultural sector. Now, the effect that that's going to have is the economic growth of South Africa is going could be reduced by zero point 0.2 percentage points to 0.3 percentage points. And as we know, our growth at the moment is absolutely stagnant.
Yes. And what you're raising is also very important. I mean, we look at BMW, which is just northwest of Pretoria or Tshwane, and you know that majority of their exports are actually straight into the American market. Now suddenly there's tariffs and they're going to be loaded with those. They then but other BMW as a national international business will say, well, it's no longer viable to run it through South Africa. Let's pull that plant out. Would have a massive knock-on effect on jobs and all of the other things that stem from it. I mean, just the supply chain that supports a facility like BMW South Africa is massive. All the different engineering companies that supply goods and services to that then also get affected. So it's not just even the jobs that would be affected directly by that. It's a knock-on effect to the supplier chain across the board.
Not just that, I mean, it goes even further than that, that it's actually damaging investor confidence from foreign investors and businesses in South Africa. And all of this could lead to a weaker rand, increased inflation, and just a horrible time overall.
And we're going to get to the next thing. And you know, what I was hoping to have a very positive conversation, but we got to have a real conversation here. This leads on to the other thing, which we know we're sitting on, is a fiscal cliff and a sovereign default. And the fact is, with the growth rate we're currently having, it's leaning towards a sovereign default of some sort in the coming future.
Definitely. I mean, in that same article, Davi Red said it's another nail in the coffin of the South African economy. And I mean, if we really look at it, it's 9.3 billion to 14 billion. It's not all that much. If we look at the bigger picture, if we look at our biggest trade partners, well, number one, we've got China. And the data I've got here was from SARS May 2025. So it's from the South African Revenue Service directly. And we've got China sitting at 10.4%, which is our biggest trading partner. Then we've got Germany in second place at 7.8%, and the United States is sitting in third at 6.3%. And the strangest thing is Mozambique is almost matching that at 5.4%.
That's interesting.
So, it's not a case of if we don't, this is going to absolutely destroy and ruin everything, but it's going to have some very, very big knocks on the economy. But I don't believe that it is the absolute, final bell ringing.
But again, as I think, as you said, as Darby Ruitt had coined, this is another nail in a very a stumbling economy. The rand is looking kind of strong right now. It's around 17.20 rand to the dollar. But that's all short term. I mean, we see the actual the period the how the rand has performed to the dollar, and the trend is always losing value. There might be a few little increases in it, but overall the trend is it's a downward spiral. And this is where I keep saying, I do believe the rand will hit 20 rand to the dollar in the near future. And I do believe that once it goes over that point, 25, 30 rand to the dollar is almost a given.
Definitely. And I mean, the other question, of course, that's being asked with all of these tariffs is what is going to be exempt? For example, is precious metals going to be exempt? And one of the ones that is specifically mentioned for South Africa is platinum, because, as you know, we're the world's biggest producer of platinum. And so it's going to be interesting to see, firstly, will that be exempt? And that, of course, is going to have a massive impact on the mining sector, whether it is or not. The second one is, once they start kicking in the 30% tariffs, is the automotive import tariff that's currently sitting at 25% going to go up to 30% as well? And then finally, what's going to happen with that extra 10% that he wants to slap onto BRICS countries?
Yeah, and again, this is that whole thing is, and I've said this many, many times, is South Africa needs to have a very clear foreign policy. We need to decide, do we align ourselves with the BRICS nations and take, as you say, take that knock as far as the exposure to the US market and say, you know what, let's look at other markets to strengthen and rather take that road? Or do we sit on the fence and try this balancing act? I mean, just when they sat down with Trump, I mean, the big thing there was taking firm action on farmer tax, clear policy on land expropriation without compensation, reforms on black economic empowerment policies, uh, action against kill the Boer rhetoric. And then the final one here was clarify policies on foreign policy on alignment with the US and BRICS, and then of course in address corruption in state-owned entities. I mean, this just alone, and I mean the US was asking us, Trump was asking these questions. These are the foundation of a lot of our big problems is we don't have solid leadership to actually take control of the situation. We got a guy like Julius Malema, which I know the video that was played was probably 3 years old or 4 years old, but the fact it's out there. And the fact is that there were 90 odd thousand people in that stadium that were jeering to what he was saying. And that causes problems. I mean, again, this is where I say foreign policy, we need to make a decision. Do we sever our ties with the US and go alone and actually build our relationship with China, with the BRICS nations, or do we continue this little dance?
That is a very good question. I mean, how do you do this? Because basically, what America is doing is they're carrying a big stick, and they're saying, "You do what we say, you fall in line, or else."
Yeah,
And the biggest problem is, how do you justify sacrificing 10% of your country's trade for 6%? And you know, I don't know. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in the position to have to make these decisions, because we all know the financial power and the economic power that America does have. However, they're wielding it like a cudgel at the moment, just bashing everybody into submission. And that is why a lot of these countries are bringing their gold back. That is why these central banks are investing in gold, is to get out from under that crushing boot of the US dollar, to get away from the pressure that can be enforced upon an economy through the US dollar. If you're holding gold versus if you're holding US dollars, United States can say, okay, you do as we say or else, versus do what you want. We've got gold.
Yeah, and I think I think of the whole BRICS, as I said, the formation of BRICS, and it's very clear that Russia was a big, uh, they were a big advocate in getting the whole thing going. And again, that's kind of to break the US dollar, the being a global trading currency and all of that. I think it was important, or it is important, that we are at such a transitionary period right now. And why are we also going on about this? And it's so important because, as I said, we look at HSBC and their forecast. They're saying lateral. The other two banks are saying no, no, no. We see lateral with an increased curve. Some other analysts are even saying we could see gold by the end of this decade, which is only a couple of years out now, to 4, 5, $6,000, if not some have even said up to $10,000. We just need the current situation where all this pushing and pulling and argy-bargy, and as you say, it's almost the US trying to throw, and I remember this with attorneys. If they don't have a case on you, they throw a number of things on you and see what sticks. Oh, that sticks, and then they go after that. And it's the same kind of thing, is they put this thing down, they threw it out, then they waited. And they see who comes back, who actually wants to fight it, who doesn't.
Yeah, and I think the problem is that we don't have a very large economy. You
No.
know, if you look at the likes of China, of India, China can stand there and say, "Oh, you want to play the tariffs game? Let's play. We're enjoying this." We can't.
Yeah.
You know,
And China did do that.
I know that's exactly the thing is they just said, okay, we'll see your 50 and raise you 10 type of
and,
thing.
and then Trump backed down.
And that's the biggest problem. We can't afford to do that. Our economy isn't strong enough. We aren't big enough. It's we're pretty much at their mercy, and that is why there needs to be a decision made. Are we going to play these games? Because basically, what they want us to do is renounce China, renounce Russia, renounce all of these countries that we're currently trading with, and I don't see how that's going to benefit us in the long term if US is just going to do what it wants when it wants anyway.
Okay, so how do we take this current dilemma and just re kind of reshift it to the man in the street? So you and we watching this podcast and we're thinking, shit, what now? So what happens if the rand does go to 2030? What happens if there is a sovereign default? Now, I've said this and I've said this for years. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Because we have not changed anything. In the last, since 2020, there's been no fundamental shift in policy to start to better the ship, SA Inc. And we are slowly sinking. The holes are all there. It's just a matter of once it gets to a certain volume where it just breaks open and then forces it to sink.
Yeah, and what we've been saying all along, and once again, we're not financial advisors. Do your own research before you do any investing activities, and don't just take the word of two guys having a chat on the internet. So, anyway, with that out of the way, so what we've always said is diversification is key.
Yeah.
Getting your money out of fiat currencies, or at least out of the rand. You know, diversifying, yes, it's fine if you've got some of your investments in rands, if you've got some of it in South African based stocks or whatever. But the key is to get it out of the rand. And that means investing in something like precious metals, which is geo neutral.
Yeah. And I think that's the underlying thing is if there is a massive local sovereign default, again, precious metals will support you. And if not, where other people are losing wealth, your wealth will actually grow and actually not just be maintained, it will grow to levels where what we've seen even with Argentina.
That's the thing. We've done the study on Argentina. We've done the study on Nigeria. I think we've shared everything that we found on there, and precious metals has won every single time. As we saw in Argentina, the peso fell because of the sovereign default, and the difference in value of 1 million pesos between 2020 and now, it's absolutely jarring how much you could have actually grown your money had you invested in precious metals, had you invested in gold. We did it specifically on gold.
Yes.
And we did the same thing in Nigeria, and the results were the same. And ultimately, we did the same thing with a retirement annuity based in South Africa. And one of the top investment houses in South Africa. It's not like, we went with the runt of the litter. We went with the absolute alpha, and it was the same result. You cannot beat gold.
Hands down. And I think this is the trend that's been there. And again, if and that policy you speak about, it's my own policy. Anybody that ever wants me to show them the numbers and figures, more than happy to show to be very clear that what we're showing here is facts, where we've taken the performance of a product like that, and we've taken it over the same period of time and how it performed versus if you're taking the same amount of money month by month, where would your value be?
I mean, yeah, the studies on Argentina, on Nigeria, we've been running them over the past 5 years. Your retirement annuity, we've been running it over the last 14 years, and it's the same story between the two of them. Investing in gold, getting your money out of the fiat currency, or at least out of rands, out of the peso, out of the naira, is just the better bet.
Yeah, again, I think we look at where the world is, and I think it's a very clear understanding that there's so much uncertainty. There's also a lot of politicking. And in a world like that right now, the common person in the street, the man in the street, is the one that's ultimately affected by all of these policies. I mean, job losses, all those things will happen regardless of any foreign policy. If the things aren't right, this is where we lose. And ultimately, this is what this podcast is about. Is not about. It's about firstly making people aware that there are options in a world that is not full of a lot of options right now.
Definitely, and as we say, you don't need a few million to invest. You can buy half an ounce, 1 gram of silver, and just slowly start building your stockpile. Start increasing your inventory of precious metals, and whether it's gold, silver, platinum, whatever, we have seen that generally over the long term, it helps your wealth to grow.
Yeah, Willem, in closing, any final thoughts?
No, I think we've pretty much said it all. It's interesting to see how they come up with numbers. We were talking about the 60% earlier, which is discounted to 40%, and it's basically just the trade deficit. Uh, I've come up with some numbers on my own.
Okay.
So, if we look at the 340 million people living in the US versus the 63.2 million living in South Africa, and we actually take the trade per capita, the US is sitting at $42.95 per person per year that they're buying from us. So this is last year's figures. We have actually been buying $91.7 per person from them. So in truth, they've got a 53% deficit to South Africa.
I'd like you to put that in a letter, and let's send it off to Donald and see what he has got to say at that. I think the whole thing, the politicking between South Africa and the US is very clear that there's another agenda at hand here.
There definitely is. I mean, it's not even a question now. You see some of the Republican senators starting to dogpile,
Yes,
with their own bills that they want to introduce, and their own. I mean, I don't know what we've done to them. I'm sorry for whatever it is, because we really don't know, but there does definitely seem to be a target painted on South Africa at the moment.
but even within the US politics, I mean, Elon's now declaring that he's going to create a third party, so it's not a two-party state. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to this because, I mean, at the best of time, Elon's social skills aren't the best. I mean, I've always said that about Trump, but I think Elon has proven himself as a businessman, as a South African that came from this country, went to Canada, started PayPal. I think that was no, it was PayPal,
Yeah, it was PayPal.
and then sold that. He made a bit of money out of that, and of course, it then rolled on to the other things, and he got involved. He didn't found, he wasn't the founder of Tesla,
No.
but he bought into it at the right time, and he saw the technology. And I mean, that's a whole debate to itself about the technology and AI and where the world's going. So all of this other noise that's going on economically, geopolitically, there's also a whole big storm coming with AI and the growth in AI and how it's affecting us and will affect us going forward. So we live in very interesting times. And I always look at my children and I think, my word, where will we be in 50 to 100 years from now?
That's a good question, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to find out.
Not
At
right
least not
now.
you and me.
Well, who knows? We might have our thoughts and everything downloaded onto a hard drive, and in 100 years there'll be a Deon version that's not me, but me, and it will talk like me, sound like me, react like me, but will it be me?
I don't know. We'll have to ask Dion Bot when that happens. But if you enjoyed the episode, hit the like button. And if you want to see some more, be sure to subscribe. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Take care. Bye.